Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video. Our Union Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji presented the Union Budget for the year 2022-23 on February 1st, 2022. Of course, as usual, some of the media houses focused on less important things like what sari she was wearing, or whether she was presenting the budget in a paper form or electronic form. And as usual, there are some praises for the budget, naturally from the ruling party, and also criticisms on the budget, naturally from the opposition party. But if we get into the details of the budget, we can observe some statistics and numbers. First thing first, the size of this budget is 39.45 lakh crores. Approximately we can say 40 lakh crores. And this is 13% more than the previous budget. That means there has been an increase of 13% in the total budget size. Whenever we look at budget, of course, there will be two aspects of it. One, where the money is coming from. Two, where the money is going to. Simply speaking, budget is nothing but a receipts and payments account of the government itself. If we observe the receipts or inflows, a major chunk of the receipts, in fact, the biggest of the entire pie, is 35% coming from borrowings. That is one striking number that we can observe from the receipts pie diagram. And around 30% of the receipts are coming from direct taxes like corporation tax and income tax, and around 28% of the total receipts coming from indirect taxes like goods and services tax, union excise duties and customs duties. But if you observe the tax receipts also, the biggest number here is that of goods and services tax. Almost 16% of the total receipts in this budget are coming from GST. And there have been other receipts including some non-tax revenues to the government, something like dividend incomes and interest incomes. Also non-debt capital receipts, majorly coming from disinvestment programs. And this is the overall structure of the inflows or cash receipts that the union government has budgeted for the next year. But once again, the major amount here is coming from debt, that is borrowings. 35% of the total inflows are from borrowings. On the other side, if we observe the outflows or payments, that means where the government is using the money that it has collected. But whatever the money that it has collected, how is it spending? This diagram tells us about where the money is going to. Here also, if you observe, the biggest number in this pie chart is 20 paisa in a rupee, which is nothing but 20% of the total payments or total outflows are going to service the debt, which is nothing but interest payments. So on one hand, 35% of the receipts are coming from borrowings, and on the other hand, 20% of our payments are going towards interest payments. In other words, the debt burden is very high. Has it been increasing or decreasing? If you observe the past trend, definitely it is increasing at an alarming pace. Anyway, moving to the other types of outflows, there are so many places where the government spends, and these are all scattered into different places and different purposes. Like 8% of the total spending is towards defense, and almost a similar number, 8%, is on subsidies and some other transfers which are recommended by the Finance Commission, around 10 paise. 17% of the total payments are going to be the transfer by the center to the states, and around 4% towards pensions, and other expenditure is around 9%. Centrally sponsored schemes and central sector schemes are having 9% and 15% of the overall outflows respectively. Now, let us get into some of the specific areas of the budget and what are the key features of this budget and what announcements have been made in the budget speech. The major announcement in 2022 budget speech is that we have entered into Amrit Kal. Now 2022 is celebrated as a year related to the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and the next 25 years has been defined as Amrit Kal. So the 25 years in future will lead India into 100th year of independence, and keeping that in mind, there has been a 25 years time period which has been named as Amrit Kal by Honorable Prime Minister and Finance Minister. Along with that, there has been another name that has been introduced called PM Gati Shakti. So two new names we can observe in this budget. Of course, we are used to such names since many years. Now, we have to just add two more names to the list. One is Amrit Kal, one is Gati Shakti. Now, what is this Gati Shakti? Let us try to link the dots. Gati Shakti says there are 7 engines for this transformative approach for economic growth and sustainable development. What are those 7 engines? Roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways, and logistics infrastructure. By now, if you don't get any name in your mind, let me take you through this name, which is familiar to you and familiar to everybody. That is the Adani Group business portfolio. You can see exactly all the names which are there in the Gati Shakti announcement in this list also. Ports, logistics, airports, water, roads and metro rail. And not only that, support systems also. Like what? Energy transmission, you can find it here. Power transmission, power distribution. And not only that, we are talking about sustainable development. Definitely. Another word is clean energy. Okay. That's what is this renewables. So what are we looking at Gati Shakti? The first impression that we can get from Gati Shakti is basically this Gati Shakti is going to be for few companies, not necessarily only to Adani Group. It is only an example where we can have a direct link to the names. But similar to these companies, other companies in the similar business will be benefited with this Gati Shakti. Yes, there has been focus on logistics since long time, but that is just continued in this budget also without any change in the course of action, in spite of being in a state of huge unemployment, in spite of being in a stage of rising prices and inflation. Again and again, the focus is given on the infrastructure, which ultimately benefits few companies like Adani Group. It will be exaggeration, but certainly the first impression when I saw this paragraph was, is this budget made for Adani? And now it is clear. It looks so, which is unfortunate. And we have been listening to this Achhe Din since long time. Now we have two more words, Amrit Kal and Gati Shakti. We have been listening to these different slogans which were given earlier, like Skill India, Startup India, Swachh Bharat, Make in India, Digital India, and New India. And since last 1.5 2 years, we have a new word coined Atmanirbhar Bharat. On one hand, we are reliant on the debt, almost debt-ridden, where we have seen the total inflows consisting of almost 35% coming from debt receipts. On the other hand, we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is paradoxical itself. But at the same time, the audacity of this government and the confidence of this government might be that people forget the past budget speeches. People don't remember what we say now by the time we reach next year and by the time we read next budget speech. So every year we will coin new words, we will use different names, we will bring some extraordinary acronyms and logos and try to keep the people waiting for the better days that are always yet to come. This has been the strategy which was followed all these years, especially since 2014. And if you observe some of the past budget speeches, we can easily understand that. Let us have a look at 2015 budget speech, which was given by late Arun Jaitley ji. In that budget speech, he said 2022 will be the Amrit Mahotsav, that is the 75th year of India's independence. The vision is Team India, led by states, guided by central government. That was the idea in 2015. Are we seeing that? Or are we seeing more increasing conflicts between central government and state governments? This was the hope or the direction in which they presented the budget or presented the budget speech. None of that happened actually. Nevertheless, what was supposed to happen by 2022 according to 2015 budget speech? A roof for every family in India means housing for all by 2022. Wow. Now we can ask ourselves, has it been achieved? We can't ask the government because anyway it doesn't answer. But at least we can ask ourselves, has it been achieved? Is there housing for all in 2022 where we are now? I don't think so. According to that plan in 2015, by now, means by 2022, we should have completed 2 crores houses in urban areas and 4 crores houses in rural areas. What is the status of that? Did we achieve even half of that? No. So, the announcements were big, targets were huge, but achievement is below par. Why there is no reference to this? We only talk about future. Why don't we talk about the past budget announcements, and why don't we talk about a status report of that? Why don't we give a status report of that in public? Why there is no discussion about so and so budget said this? What happened to it now? Why these questions are not coming from so-called media? That is the point. So if you look at the progress report, when compared with the past budget speeches, we can easily understand definitely we are lagging behind very much. And not only that, in 2015 budget speech, it was mentioned that all these houses will have basic facilities, 24-hour power supply, clean drinking water, a toilet, connected to a road. What a dream. And definitely, it's a good idea. Who says no to that? Is there anybody in this country who doesn't want a house? Having power supply 24 hours, having clean drinking water, having a toilet, and be connected to road? Of course everybody wants. Question is, are we only stating them in the budget speeches? Or are we achieving it? That is the important point. And in the same budget speech 2015, late Arun Jaitley ji said that there will be secondary schools within 5 kilometers reach of each child by 2022. Again, when in 2015, we'll put a target for 2022. When we actually come to 2022, we don't even talk about that. What was the target? There should be a senior secondary school within 5 kilometers reach of each child. Did we achieve that? Definitely no. And we have different names and schemes. Skill India, Make in India, etc. What is the status of that? Not sure of that. And look at this point. A very important point. And definitely an aspirational one. No one is questioning the aspirations. By 2022, this was mentioned in 2015, I'm just reminding. In 2015 budget speech, it was mentioned that by 2022, which was supposed to be the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which eventually we already reached, we have aimed to make India the manufacturing hub of the world. Fantastic target, no doubt. Manufacturing hub of the world we want to make India. And if it was achieved, who else will be happier than everybody? But what is the reality? Have we become the manufacturing hub of the world in these 7 years? Let us look at the facts. According to the World Bank statistics, in 1960, I'm talking about 1960. In 1960, share of the manufacturing sector in our percentage of GDP was 14.75%. Let us say approximately 15%. Means in our GDP, the share of manufacturing was 15% in 1960. It went up, went down, went up, went down, fine. Now in 2019, mind you, before pandemic, let us not bring pandemic here. Before pandemic, 2019, share of manufacturing in our total GDP is 13.33%. So we had a target, very good target. No one questions that. We failed in that. But why nobody asks a question on this? Why did we fail? Why did we not succeed in this target? What else can be done to make this successful? These questions won't come because now we shift the goalpost to 2047 because next 25 years we declared Amritkal. Wait for 25 more years to achieve something what we already told or what we will tell eventually in future. That is worrisome. So certainly many things that were projected to be achieved in 2015 have not been achieved. Housing for all is still a dream. Having a senior secondary school within 5 kilometers reach of each child in this country is still a dream. Making India manufacturing hub of the world now is looking like a distant dream. Because where we have come to, where was 1960 and where is 2019? In 1960 itself, we had 15% of our GDP coming from manufacturing sector, and now we reached to 13.33% of the GDP is only coming through manufacturing sector. That is reality. We have to wake up and smell the coffee. In the same speech, 2015, again referring to 2022, because then the goalpost was 2022. Naturally, always in future. 2022 is the future for 2015. So in 2015, with the confidence that nobody will ask us in 2022, a lot of announcements were made. And one of the biggest announcements, definitely in the speech, was that by the time we reach 2022, we have to become a prosperous country and we have to become a responsible global power. Global power. And definitely, that will be our true and meaningful tribute to our freedom fighters. 100%. Nobody will disagree with that. If we become global power, if we become prosperous country, that is exactly the tribute to our freedom fighters. But the question is not that. The question is not whether we want to give tribute or whether we want to really achieve this or not. Everybody wants to achieve that. Are we really achieving that? From 2015 to 2022, at least if we are in the path of achieving that, we would have been reasonably happy. But is it the truth? Is it the reality? What is happening from 2015 to 2022? Are we at least on the path of becoming global power? Or is our position deteriorating? Let us take a look. In 2021, the global rank of India is 140 in the gender gap index. And definitely, it is shameful that this rank is much below countries, our neighbor countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bhutan. 140 is the rank of India in the global gender gap index. So that is definitely not a sign of being a global power. And that is definitely not what our freedom fighters would have wanted us to achieve. In the global hunger index, if we observe the ranking of India between 2009 to 2021, it's a long period of time. Of course, it was not great earlier either. 65, 67, 67, 65, but it was in 60s. Now comes 2014. Fantastic. It came down to 55. Means we have improved our rank. That's a good thing. Since then, what is happening? 80, 97, 100, 103, 102, 94, 101. So almost, if you observe, the past 5 years, out of 5 years, 4 years, our rank in the global hunger index has been almost around 100 out of around 130, 140 countries. Is that a sign of becoming a global power? Are we going towards becoming a global power by increasing hunger of our citizens? In the global peace index, India's rank was 135. Is that any good signal? Even in the democracy index also, we fell to 53rd rank in 2020. So it is not improving either. It is also deteriorating. These are all global indices. Again, is this the way we give tribute to our freedom fighters? Or is this the way to become global power? Even from the press freedom index point of view, in 2021, where are we standing? 142. 142 is the rank of India in the World Press Freedom Index. So, whether it is rankings related to democracy or press freedom, or whether it is related to the peace and tranquility that is maintained in the country, we can call that a social index, or whether it is related to hunger index, or whether it is related to gender index, in many fronts, our rank is not improving. Our rank is deteriorating. That is visible from all these indicators. Now, let's move on to another budget speech. Some more promises, some more big statements. What was the budget speech of 2016 talking about? Focusing on agriculture and farmers' welfare. And this is the first time we came out with a jumla of doubling the income of the farmers by 2022. So in 2016 budget speech, first time the union government coined this word, doubling of the farmer income. We all felt good. Wow, that's what everybody wants. Doubling of farmer income should be done. Why not? It should be done. But what happened in 2022? Has the farmer's income doubled? Whether it is doubled or not is a different story. When the 2022 budget speech is given, at least was there a reference to this target, and at least is there any mention of this word doubling of farmer incomes in the 2022 budget speech? Okay, let us say we did not achieve. Where are we now? At least what progress we made? Did we make 50% progress, 70% progress, 80% progress? These things should be discussed, right? No reference to this at all. Completely ignoring this doubling of farmers' income spin when it comes to the 2022. Because in 2016, it was just freely made as a statement. By 2022, we will double the farmers' income. When really 2022 comes, we are silent on that. That is the way the union government is giving big statements in the budget speeches. But ultimately, when it comes to the performance, it is silent. And by the way, it is not only in 2016 budget speech where this word of doubling the farmers' income is used. Almost after this, six budget speeches contained the same thing. Every budget speech, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 also. Every budget speech contained this word, doubling of farmer income, doubling the farmer income. When was that targeted? 2022. Did we reach 2022? Yes. Now, sir, what happened to the doubling of farmer income? Silence. No response. Or NDA, no data available. And in the same 2016 budget speech, where it was rightly mentioned that access to the markets is very critical for the income of farmers, definitely yes. And there was supposed to be an e-market platform, popularly called ENAM, that is Electronic National Agricultural Market, which will link almost all the APMCs in the country, like Agricultural Produce Marketing Committees, and definitely that will revolutionize the way the agricultural markets function. All these things were told in 2016 budget speech. So basically, again, another announcement that there will be ENAMs in this country, and according to the data, how many such rural markets are there? Around 22,000 rural markets are there, which were supposed to be linked to ENAM portal. That was a target, very good target, no doubt in that. Where are we now? We have reached 2022. only 1,000 markets are integrated. Means 1,000 out of 22,000 markets are only integrated. This is the status. And this is according to official website of ENAM only. It is the official government statistics. 1,000 out of 22,000 markets only are connected with ENAM. So, no mention about the progress report at all. All these big announcements were made in 2016 budget speech. Doubling of farmer income, connecting 22,000 markets to ENAM. None of that happened when 2022 actually arrived. And in 2022, we are silent about that. Let's move on. Let's go to 2018 budget speech. What was mentioned there? A very good announcement. Announcements are always good. Nobody says announcements are bad. This announcement was also good. What was the announcement? A very good announcement. Research. To step up investment in research and related infrastructure in the premier educational institutions, like for example, IITs, IIMs, or other universities, including medical colleges, health institutions. So the focus here was on research. So in order to increase more investments in research activities, there was a fantastic name that was given. Definitely, this credit has to be given. Fantastic acronyms have been developed in the past 7 years. One of that is this RISE. One more. Revitalizing infrastructure and systems in education. Wow. What a fantastic name and target. By what? 2022. When was this announced? 2018. By 2022, we were supposed to build good research infrastructure facilities. Total investment, what was contemplated was 1 lakh crore rupees. That was told in the 2018 budget. This is taken from the official budget speech document. So 1 lakh crores was supposed to be invested in the development of infrastructure in the educational research. For that, there was another authority that was supposed to be started called as HEFA, that would be structured for funding this initiative. Was HEFA being formed? Yes, definitely it was formed. No doubt it was formed. Next question. 1 lakh crores of investment in the development of infrastructure for research activities. Has it happened? Absolutely no. Now look at the fate of this HEFA. This is from the budget of 2020 to 23. Look at this particular number. How much was allocated in the current budget is 0.01 crores. That means 1 lakh rupees was allocated to HEFA. Okay, maybe if we already achieved this 1 lakh crore investment, probably we may not need more investment. Was it the case? No. Not even 1,000 crores was spent on this since the announcement. And as a test, if you can look at actual figures of 2021 also, the amount that was spent was 200 crores only. Where is 1 lakh crores? Where is 200 crores actual spending in 2021? And where is 1 lakh rupees? This is insane. Ridiculous. 1 lakh rupees allocated in the budget 22-23 for HEFA, for which a fantastic announcement of 1 lakh crore was done in 2018. So what is the confidence of these announcements? The confidence is in 2018 we will give announcement that we will do something by 2022. When that 2022 comes, anyway nobody will ask. Anyway, even if somebody asks, anyway we will not answer. So I can make any announcements. What is the credibility of these budget speeches? When in 2015 speech, 16 speech, 17, 18, in all the past speeches, various announcements have been made and none of them have progressed the way they were contemplated. And we now make another announcement telling that we have Gati Shakti, we have Amritkal. What is the credibility of these names? What is the credibility of these announcements in the budget speeches? Where is the accountability on part of the union government related to the progress report of the budget speeches, what they already gave in the past years? That is missing. Let's move on. Now 2019 budget speech. According to 2019 budget speech, of course, we are going to become New India by 2022. So in 2019, it was contemplated that by 2022 we will become or moving towards realizing a New India. And naturally, when we come to 2022, we have to wait for Amrit Kal. That's a latter step. Anyway, what was told in 2019 budget speech? By 2022, an India which is clean, an India which is healthy, where everybody would have a house, everybody, with universal access to toilets, water and electricity, where farmers' income would have doubled, youth and women would get ample opportunities to fulfill their dreams, and an India free from terrorism, communalism, casteism, corruption and nepotism. What a vision, what a dream in 2019 budget speech. But what are the actions which have been taken in order to fulfill those dreams, in order to actually achieve those dreams, is least mentioned in the budget speeches. And have we become New India according to these parameters? See, New India has different meanings from different segments of the society. But these are the official parameters given by the government of India in the House of Parliament, in the budget speech of 2019. So whenever in future also we look at whether we became New India or not, we have to look at these parameters only. And we have looked at the social indicators in the Global Hunger Index, or for that matter in many of the other indices like Peace Index. Where are we standing in the total rankings of the globe? So, in a nutshell, when we look at the past budget speeches, what we can understand is this. Earlier we were told that अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं. When is that? By 2019. When that came, we said New India is going to come. When is that? By 2022. Now we are in 2022. And what are we talking about? Amrit Kal for the next 25 years. So in 2014, 5 years, again for another 3 years, again for now, at least being practical, because people like us might ask, what happened? Now they shifted the goalpost to 25 years. So you can't ask for what happened, why we have not achieved all these dreams till next 25 years. That is literally cheating the Indian public, or thinking that citizens of this country are fools. And definitely that shows the lack of accountability from the government. And definitely that will be rooted to one important point, that our Honorable Prime Minister has not given a single press conference since he was elected. That itself shows there is no answerability, no accountability to the public, because public cannot directly ask him anyway. It is the fourth pillar of the democracy, at least supposed to be the fourth pillar of democracy, media, which should ask questions to the people in power. But unfortunately, most of the times it is happening the other way. So with this audacity of no answerability and no accountability, such kind of tall claims are being made with impunity, and the goalpost is being changed almost eternally. After observing the past budgets and the big statements made but less progress made on those statements, let's get into some of the aspects related to the current budget, that is 2022-23 budget. And majorly this budget is focusing on Gati Shakti master plan, wherein roads, railways, renewable energy, airports, etc. In other words, simply infrastructure is the focus. But is that the real problem, or is that the solution for Indian economy at the current stage? That has to be looked into. Infrastructure is that definitely which facilitates the trade and commerce and brings the goods and services to the customers in a better manner, no doubt. But the current problems of Indian economy are not because of the lack of infrastructure only. The problem is in the demand, and naturally because of that, the supply of goods and services. Major problem is demand. And why is that lagging? Because of the reduction of the purchasing power of the public. On one hand, the private consumption has stagnated in India almost. It is lagging. It's not going up. Even Economic Survey 2022 confirmed that. On the other hand, our power consumption is declining. Means manufacturing is not happening as it should have. If we observe these statistics, almost since past 3 years, even before the pandemic, our power utilization has not crossed 70%, which is a clear indication that the manufacturing activity has not picked up. That means there is an issue on the supply side. And on the demand side, we can understand how the private consumption is lagging and falling. So where the situation is that the problem is on the supply side and demand side, and we are talking about infrastructure, which is an intermediary. So problem is somewhere, solution is being searched for somewhere else. Solution for this is definitely to increase the purchasing power of the people by creating more jobs, by creating employment. Pure investment in the infrastructure, as per this plan, is not going to generate employment. As we have seen earlier also, this will mostly result in jobless growth. At least earlier we had growth, though it was jobless. Now we have a double whammy. Even growth is also not there. GDP is constantly coming down. So we have very less GDP growth rates even before pandemic. Growth rate decline is not the result of the pandemic. It started well before the pandemic. That has to be identified. On one hand, GDP growth rate is low, and on the other hand, inflation is high. It is rising. Generally, when the consumption is falling, supply also will fall, which can be observed from lower power consumption. That means growth is also falling. A lower growth and a higher inflation is signaling a stagflation. That is the danger India is facing as an economy. But the current government is finding solutions for this elsewhere, which will not solve this problem. So certainly the issue is not in the infrastructure development anymore. Reasonable infrastructure is there in this country. Now it is the utilization of the infrastructure in better manner and generating employment, thereby generating purchasing power and thereby generating demand. But unfortunately, the focus of the present union government is somewhere else. On one hand, the wealth inequality in India is also increasing. Just if we observe these statistics, in 2000 year, top 10% Indians had a share of around 55% of the wealth in India. Now they have almost 65% of the wealth in India in 2021. That means the share of the top 10% has increased in this period. And not only that, the share of top 1% then was around 23.5%. Now it is 33%. On the contrary, bottom 50% had 8.3% share in the wealth in the year 2000. Now in 2021, their share has declined to 5.9% only, which means the wealth inequalities are increasing rampantly in India on one side. and the present government reduces customs duty on the diamonds on the other side. So, reduction of duties and taxes on those goods and services like diamonds, and increase of taxes and duties on those goods and services which are used by common public is definitely counterproductive, and definitely it will increase the wealth inequality only. Also, it is expected that in 2022, 5G technology will be rolled out in India, and a lot of private operators will launch their 5G services in India in the year 2022, that is current year, as part of Digital India initiative. The private operators are going to roll out 5G. Now look at the situation of the government owned company BSNL or MTNL, the own baby of the government. So what happened in the budget of 2021-2022 was they allocated some 26,000 crores approximately for introducing 4G, not even 5G, 4G services for BSNL and MTNL. That also they did not spend, because the revised estimates of 21-22 now say that there is a 20,500 crores of saving in that, because the investment in BSNL and MTNL for 4G spectrum has been transferred to next fiscal. When it comes to private operators, 5G rollout will happen in this year, but state operators, government operators like BSNL and MTNL will not even have 4G. Even though allocation was made, it was not spent. There was a 20,500 crores of non-utilization of that fund which was allocated in the last year's budget. So that shows very clearly the direction of this government, whereas it is favoring some private entities over and above the public entities, and it is definitely discriminating, because 5G for private, not even 4G for BSNL. Why? There is no answer. Not only that, if you observe the saving which was made between budget estimates of 21-22 and revised estimates of 21-22, another saving that happened was by cutting petroleum subsidies by around 7,000 crores. Why is that? Because LPG subsidy has been reduced. Lower requirement under LPG subsidy was the reason quoted by the government itself. So 7,047 crores to be precise, LPG subsidy was cut after allocation was already made. So once again, to whom this LPG subsidy will be helpful? Naturally to the poor people, naturally to the people who are having very lower incomes. For them, there is a cut in the subsidies given to them. For public entities, there is a cut in the amount of investment that is supposed to be made, even though it is already allocated. Whereas the focus now is on infrastructure consisting of various aspects of roads, railways, power distribution, etc., as we have seen earlier. In spite of not actually creating any jobs, in spite of not addressing the problem of wealth inequalities, and having policies like reduction of customs duty of diamonds. What are they telling us? Simply, this budget or the present government's policy itself is definitely favoring a few corporates but not the public in general. Now, let's look at some more numbers in the present budget. There is a scheme called Pradhan Mantri Annadata Aay Samrakshan Abhiyan, which is basically to support the farmers' incomes and give an assurance of income to the farmers. The idea of that scheme was that, which was definitely a good scheme by its name and also its objectives. Now, in the current budget, how much was allocated for this? If you observe, you will be stunned. Only 1 crore rupees was allocated for this. Just 1 crore. It is definitely difficult to imagine what kind of Aay Samrakshan we are going to give to our farmers with this great allocation of 1 crore rupees. Not only that, we have seen in the earlier budgets, there was a new cess which was introduced in the name of agricultural infrastructure and development. Last year, in 2021, this new cess was introduced. The name of that cess was Agricultural Infrastructure Development Cess, that is AIDC. So what naturally the purpose of utilization of this cess should be for agricultural infrastructure development. That is the meaning of a cess. A cess has to be used for the purpose for which it is collected. So AIDC, that is Agricultural Infrastructure and Development Cess, we are going to call it AIDC from now onwards. How much was levied? 2.5 rupees per liter for petrol, 4 rupees per liter on diesel. This was the AIDC that was introduced in last budget, and government has collected fairly good amount of money on that. So according to the revised estimates of 2021-22, how much money was almost collected? Around 73,370 crores of rupees was collected from AIDC, of course, through customs as well as union excise duties, basically on the petrol and diesel products and some other products in customs. But the total amount of AIDC that was collected in the year 21-22 is around 73,370 crores. And this is increased in the budget estimates of 22-23 to around 78,000 crores approximately. So around 78,000 crores almost the union government is going to collect in the form of Agricultural Infrastructure Development Cess. Now look at this. What is the allocation for the Agricultural Infrastructure Fund? The budget estimate for 21-22 was 900 crores. Even that was not spent. Out of 900 crores, only 200 crores was spent. And now, budget estimate for 22-23 states, even that 900 crores also is reduced to 500 crores. So 78,000 crores of rupees, which is going to be collected in the name of agricultural infrastructure and development. Allocation to the actual agricultural infrastructure fund is only 500 crores. Is that a joke? When you look at these numbers, we can't believe them. But that is the reality. When you look at the details of the budget documents about the spending of the past budgets and allocations of the current budget. And naturally, there is no wonder when the farmers' unions say that this government is showing an attitude of revenge. What is this meager allocation of 500 crores for agricultural infrastructure fund? And what is this ridiculous allocation of 1 crore for PM Asha scheme? Definitely these indicate, and there is a justification definitely for the farmers' unions to believe that this government is almost showing an attitude of revenge against the farmers, because their movement for repealing of the farm law succeeded, and the government had to succumb to their appeals. And not only that, the overall allocation for the entire agricultural department is only 1,24,000 crores in this budget. That means the increase is less than 1%. Last year allocation was 1,23,000 crores. This year is 1,24,000 crores. Just a meager increase of approximately 1,000 crores for the agricultural department as a whole, which indicates an increase of less than 1%. But what is the increase of size of the budget? total size of the budget? 13%. Means there is a 13% increase in the overall size of the budget, but amount allocated for the agricultural department is only increased by 1%. Again that shows the priorities of the government are not in favor of helping the farmers and improving the agricultural sector of India, and thereby trying to increase their incomes as promised earlier. No way it is near to that, and in fact it is going in opposite direction. 13% increase in budget size with only a 1% increase in the allocation to agriculture department is a clear indication of that. Now, there is one more strange thing that happened in the budget. In the budget speech, Madam Sitaraman told that Pradhan Mantri E-Vidya is one of the schemes which will introduce one class, one TV channel, which will enable supplementary education to classes 1 to 12, which is a good announcement. Because of pandemic, a lot of students in India were kept away from education, and in order to give them education through television or online platforms, this scheme called Pradhan Mantri E-Vidya was already there. Now, lot of more TV channels are going to be introduced as per the speech of our finance minister. So for this purpose, according to the announcement in the budget, as part of Pradhan Mantri E-Vidya program, the number of channels will be expanded from 12 to 200 TV channels. That's a fantastic announcement. Existing, there are 12 channels it seems, and the announcement is that will be increased to 200 TV channels through PM E-Vidya scheme. Now, let's have a look at the allocation in this budget for the same scheme, Pradhan Mantri E-Vidya. 1 lakh rupees. 0.01 crores means 1 lakh rupees only is allocated. I am not sure how can you build or develop another 188 TV channels with 1 lakh rupees is beyond imagination. And not only that, last year's budget allocated 50 crores but spent only 1 lakh. That too, according to the revised estimates. And the next year spending is going to be 1 lakh on Pradhan Mantri E-Vidya, and this has become a major announcement, and that is widely applauded without looking into the details of actual allocations. So the real allocation for Pradhan Mantri E-Vidya was 1 lakh rupees. That's completely ridiculous. Not only Pradhan Mantri E-Vidya, in general, if you look at the amount that is spent on the children's welfare during the past 7 years, there has been a continuous reduction in that. If you look at the overall size of the budget and percentage of amount that is going to be spent on children's welfare, earlier around 4.64% was the proportion of budgeted amount for children's welfare in the total budget. Now, in the current budget, it is only 2.35%. Means there has been a continuous decline in the amounts that are being allocated to children's welfare. No wonder we are lagging in many social indices. And in the current budget, the total amount for the children's welfare has seen an increase of only 8%, to be specific 8.19%, whereas as we already saw, the total size of the budget went up by 13.25%. So here also, no focus has been given on the children welfare, who are our future. That is not a good indicator either. So what is the essence of this budget? If we observe, infra has been on the focus at the cost of welfare, and subsidies are going to decline on a whole by 39%. That again proves welfare has been ignored. Focus is more on infrastructure, which in turn will benefit large corporates in those sectors than the common public or the unemployed youth. So net, this is the worst of both worlds, in the sense Yes, there has been a push for increase in capital expenditure by investing in infrastructure, but that investment is coming from the money that is mobilized through inflationary taxes, like taxing petrol and diesel heavily. The objective is at least infra, but not welfare. Possibility is that neither there will be welfare nor there will be infra. That is the danger which this budget is looming at. And with that, we'll conclude this discussion on the Union Budget 2022-23. Thank you very much.